I turned my key in the lock of my second home, the little rental property on Maple Street I'd bought 20 years ago with Linda's life insurance money, and someone opened the door from inside. Clara. My daughter stood there in yoga pants and a designer sweatshirt, phone in one hand, coffee in the other, looking at me like I was the goddamn mailman. "Oh, Dad," she said, not moving from the doorway. "You should have called first." Behind her, I could see Ethan, her husband, sprawled on my couch. My couch. The leather one Linda and I had picked out at that estate sale in 2019. His feet were up on the coffee table, shoes still on, and he was watching my TV. Through the kitchen doorway, I spotted his mother, that vulture Patricia, rummaging through my cabinets. "Called first?" I kept my voice level. 58 years old, and I'd learned to keep my voice level. "Clara, this is my house." "Well, yeah, technically," she laughed. Actually laughed. "But you said we could stay here while our place gets renovated? Remember? Last month at brunch?" I had said no such thing. I'd said they could store some boxes in the garage. Boxes, not their entire lives. I said the garage, Clara, for boxes. "Dad, you're getting confused again." She put her hand on my arm, that patronizing touch that made my jaw clench. "It's okay. It happens. You told us we could stay as long as we needed." Ethan looked up from the TV then, gave me this slick smile. "Hey, Michael, don't worry about it, man. We're taking great care of the place." Taking great care. There were takeout containers on the counter. The carpet had a stain that definitely wasn't there last month. Through the window, I could see their cars in my driveway, both of them, blocking access to the garage. Patricia emerged from the kitchen holding my late wife's good china. "Michael, dear, you don't mind if we use these, do you? They're just sitting in the cabinet gathering dust." I minded. I minded everything about this. But I didn't say anything. Not then. I just stood there like an idiot, key still in my hand, while my daughter smiled and her husband changed the channel, and his mother examined Linda's dishes like she was pricing them for a yard sale. "I'll call later," I said. I left, walked back to my car, sat in the driver's seat for 10 minutes, hands shaking, while neighbors probably wondered why old man Michael was having a breakdown in his Honda. Linda had warned me. 3 years ago, in the hospital, when the cancer was eating through her like acid. "Don't give them everything," she'd whispered. "They'll take it and want more." I'd promised her I wouldn't. I'd lied. That night, I called Clara. She didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. I texted. Nothing. Finally, at 11 p.m., she sent back, "Dad, we're sleeping. We'll talk tomorrow." Tomorrow came. No call. I drove back to Maple Street. Their cars were still there. I knocked. Patricia answered. "Oh, Michael, Clara and Ethan went out. They'll be back later. I need to talk to them about the house." "Of course, dear. They mentioned you might be confused about the arrangement. Why don't you come back when they're home?" Confused. That word again. I went home. My real home. The apartment near the mechanic shop where I'd worked for 35 years before retirement. Small place. 1 bedroom. Paid off. Mine. At least, I thought it was mine. The apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that presses down on your chest until you can feel your own pulse in your ears. I sat on the couch, staring at the framed photo on the table. Linda and me at Niagara Falls, 1998. Her hair was caught in the wind, that wild laugh frozen in time. She'd always been the one who could find joy in the small things. A cup of coffee on a cold morning, the way sunlight hit the leaves in October, me coming home from the shop with grease under my fingernails. "You look happiest when you're working," she used to say. I didn't feel happy now, just hollow, like the life I'd built was being quietly dismantled while I watched. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying Clara's tone, the way she spoke to me as if I were some senile old man who'd misplaced his keys again. I wasn't confused. I might forget what I went into a room for sometimes, but I wasn't losing my mind. I remembered exactly what I'd said to her. "You can keep the boxes in the garage for a few weeks." That was it. No mention of staying. No talk of moving in. And now they were living there, eating in Linda's kitchen, sleeping in the guest room she'd decorated for Christmas visits that never happened after Linda died. The next morning, I drove to the house again. I told myself I just wanted to talk, to clear things up, but part of me wanted to catch them off guard. I parked down the street, walked up the sidewalk slowly, like a thief in my own neighborhood. The lawn hadn't been mowed. There were toys scattered near the porch. Patricia's grandkids' toys, I guessed. A faded plastic tricycle, a deflated ball, a pile of chalk drawings on the steps. I felt something twist in my gut. This wasn't how I'd imagined retirement. I'd thought maybe I'd rent the place out to a nice couple, use the money for fishing trips, or to fix up the old motorcycle in storage. Not this. Not my daughter squatting in it like she owned the deed. I rang the bell. No answer. I tried the door. Locked. For the first time in 20 years, my key didn't work. The lock had been changed. I stood there staring at the doorknob, the metal cold in my hand. My ears started ringing. Changed the locks. They'd actually changed the damn locks. My house, my name on the property tax, and they'd locked me out. I knocked harder, the kind of knock that makes your hand sting. Nothing. Curtains twitched in the living room. Someone was in there. I saw the flicker of movement, a shadow passing by the window. "Clara?" I shouted. "Ethan!" The door stayed closed. The neighbors across the street were watching now, a woman in a bathrobe peeking through her blinds. I could almost hear what she'd tell her husband later. "Michael's losing it, yelling at his own house again." I left before I did something I couldn't undo. My hands were shaking as I drove back to the apartment. I called my lawyer, an old friend from the shop, but he didn't pick up. Left a message. "They changed the locks, Steve. On Maple Street. I need advice." I spent the rest of the afternoon pacing the apartment, counting the minutes until he called back. He didn't. That night I poured myself a drink, then another. The whiskey burned in my throat, but it dulled the noise in my head. I stared at Linda's photo again. "You were right," I said out loud. "They'll take it all." I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? My daughter broke into my house and changed the locks? They'd tell me it was a civil matter. Family stuff. They always did. Days passed. No call from Clara. No call from Steve. I drove by the Maple Street house every morning just to see. Their cars were always there. Once, I saw Ethan out front washing his truck in the driveway. He waved like nothing was wrong. I didn't wave back. Another day, Patricia was planting flowers in the front yard. My yard. She looked up, saw me parked across the street, and smiled. This smug, satisfied little smile that made me want to scream. I drove off instead. It was about a week later when I finally got Steve on the phone. "Michael," he said, his voice tired. "Listen. You can file an unlawful detainer. It's your property, but it'll take time. If they've been living there a while and claim you gave permission, the court might see it as a tenancy." "I didn't give permission," I said. "They're lying." "I believe you, but you'll have to prove it. Texts, emails, anything in writing." I had nothing, just my word against theirs. Steve sighed. "I'll start the paperwork, but it might get messy. You sure you want to go through with this?" "It's my house," I said. "I'm sure." After I hung up, I sat for a long time in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. The apartment felt smaller than ever. Every wall seemed to close in. Every creak in the floor reminded me that this wasn't the home Linda and I had built. That house on Maple Street was more than a building. It was the last piece of her I still had, a place she'd filled with her laughter, her touch, her scent. And now, it was full of strangers. Weeks went by. The legal process crawled forward. Clara still didn't call. Once, I got a text from her. "Dad, please don't make this difficult. We'll move out when we can." When we can. No apology, no acknowledgement, just entitlement, pure and simple. I wanted to write back something cruel, something to make her feel what I felt, but I didn't. I deleted the message instead. I started keeping a notebook. Writing things down helped me stay sane. Notes about the house, dates I saw them there, times I called, what Patricia said. It became a kind of journal. Somewhere in the middle of it, I started writing to Linda, as if she were still around. "They've taken your china," I wrote one night. "The blue set you loved. Patricia's probably chipped it by now." Other nights, I wrote about smaller things, the weather, a dream I'd had, a memory of our first date. Sometimes I'd fall asleep in the chair with the notebook open on my lap. Then one morning, I drove by Maple Street again and saw a "for sale" sign on the lawn. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. I parked, got out, walked right up to the sign. There it was, a big white placard with a realtor's name and phone number. My name wasn't anywhere on it. I called the number immediately. "Yes," the woman said cheerfully. "It's a lovely 3-bedroom property, recently updated. Are you interested in scheduling a viewing?" I told her it was my house. There was silence on the other end. Then, "Sir, according to our records, the current owners are Clara and Ethan Daniels. Do you have proof of ownership?" I hung up before I said something that would have landed me in jail. They were selling it. My daughter was selling the house I'd bought with Linda's life insurance. My chest hurt so bad I had to sit down on the curb. I don't remember how long I stayed there. Just that when I finally got up, my knees ached and my hands were trembling. I drove straight to Steve's office. He wasn't surprised. "They must have forged something," he said. "We'll contest it, but it could take months." That night, I couldn't bring myself to write in the notebook. The words felt useless. I poured another drink, then another, until the world blurred around the edges. I dreamed of Linda, standing on the porch, her hair lit by the sun, holding a cup of coffee. She looked at me and said, "You let them in, Michael. You left the door open." When I woke, it was still dark, and the apartment felt colder than it had any right to. By the end of that month, the house was gone. Sold. My lawyer called to tell me there was nothing left to do. The deed had been transferred, the sale finalized. I didn't go by to see who moved in. I didn't want to. I boxed up the last of Linda's things from the apartment, the photo, the scarf she used to wear in winter, the half-empty bottle of her perfume, and put them in the closet. I stopped driving by Maple Street, stopped checking my phone for messages that never came. Some nights I sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker, wondering how it had all gone so wrong, wondering if maybe Clara was right, if maybe I was confused after all. But then I'd remember the look in her eyes that day at the door, cold, calculating, a stranger's eyes, and I knew I wasn't confused. I was betrayed, and betrayal has a way of staying with you, long after the locks are changed and the house is gone. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? 3 weeks later, my son Ryan got married. I should have been happy. Second marriage for him, after the first one crashed and burned because he was too busy with his startup to notice his wife was miserable. This new one, Leah, was 26. Ryan was 35. She had Instagram-perfect looks and the personality of a loan shark. The wedding was at some vineyard an hour outside Portland. Clara was a bridesmaid. Ethan was a groomsman. I sat alone in the third row, wearing my one good suit, watching my children pretend we were a functional family. During the reception, Leah found me at the bar. "Michael." She said my name like it tasted bad. "We need to talk about your apartment." My apartment? "Ryan and I are going to need a place to stay while we look for a house. Your apartment is perfect. It's close to his office." I stared at her. "My apartment isn't available." "Well, that's the thing." She smiled, but her eyes stayed cold. "Ryan already talked to you about this. You agreed, remember?" There it was again. Remember. Like I was senile, like I was losing my mind, like I couldn't be trusted to know my own life. I didn't agree to anything. Michael, you did. Last Sunday, at brunch. She turned to a cluster of people near the cake table. Clara, come here. Tell your father what he agreed to. Clara floated over, champagne in hand, looking annoyed. Dad, we talked about this. You said it was fine. I said no such thing. You're doing it again. Clara's voice got louder. People were starting to look. You're getting confused. Maybe we should talk to your doctor about this. Ryan appeared then. His new wife latched onto his arm like a barnacle. Dad, what's going on? Your wife thinks I'm giving up my apartment. Well, yeah. Ryan looked genuinely confused. You offered. I didn't. Leah's face changed then. The sweet smile dropped, and I saw what was underneath. Listen, Michael. Ryan and I are starting our lives together. We need space. You have space. You're alone. It's selfish to keep a whole apartment when you could easily move into something smaller. Selfish, I repeated. Yes, selfish. She stepped closer. You're an old man living alone in a 2-bedroom apartment. We're a young couple trying to build a future. The decent thing would be to help your son. I felt something cold settle in my chest. The apartment is mine. For now, Leah said. Clara touched my arm again, that same patronizing touch. Dad, we're worried about you. Living alone, getting confused. Maybe it's time to think about assisted living. Somewhere you'd have people around. Assisted living. They wanted to put me in a home. I'm 58, Clara, not 80. But you're acting confused, forgetting conversations. Maybe you had a small stroke and didn't realize it. The crowd around us had grown. Cousins, friends, Ryan's co-workers, all watching old man Michael lose his mind at a wedding. Give me your keys, Leah said suddenly. What? Your apartment keys. Give them to me right now. We're going to need to get in and measure the space. Absolutely not. She held out her hand. The keys, Michael. No. And then she slapped me. Right there in front of everyone, this 26-year-old woman slapped me across the face. The room went silent. I touched my cheek, felt the sting. Looked at my son, who stood there doing nothing. Looked at Clara, who was checking her phone. Looked at Ethan, who had the decency to look uncomfortable, but still said nothing. I pulled out my phone, made one call. Didn't say much, just an address and a time. 20 minutes later, a man walked into the reception hall. Tall, military bearing, gray hair. He moved through the crowd like he owned the place, walked right up to our little family drama circle, and stood next to me. This him? He asked. I nodded. He looked at Leah. Didn't say anything, just looked at her. She started crying. Right there. Tears just streaming down her face. Then Clara. Then Ryan. Even Ethan looked shaken. The man turned to me. You good? Yeah. He left. I left too. Walked out of the vineyard, got in my car, drove home. My phone blew up. Texts, calls, voicemails. Clara saying I'd embarrassed the family. Ryan saying I'd ruined his wedding. I turned the phone off. Sat in my apartment. Linda's face smiled at me from the photo on the wall. I know, I told her. I know what I promised, but I'm done now. I opened my laptop, started making notes, lists, names, details. Everything I knew about Clara's influencer business. Everything I knew about Ethan's real estate deals. Everything I knew about Ryan's startup that was propped up by investor money he couldn't pay back. In the back of my bedroom closet, behind the winter coats Linda had insisted on buying even though Portland barely got snow, I found the keys to my old workshop. I hadn't been there in 3 years, not since I'd retired. The place was half abandoned, lease almost up, filled with tools and equipment and memories of a life that used to make sense, but it was mine, and it was time to use it. The workshop smelled like motor oil and rust. That scent had seeped into the walls over the decades, into the concrete floor, into every piece of metal and wood. I flicked on the lights. Half of them didn't work. The ones that did buzzed faintly, a sickly yellow hum that cast uneven shadows over the mess I'd left behind years ago. Dust covered everything. My old tool bench, the hydraulic lift that hadn't lifted anything heavier than a lawnmower in 10 years. The pegboard with the socket wrenches Linda had organized by size because she knew I never would. Each tool had its place, traced in marker on the board. She'd done that one Saturday when I was still working 12-hour days and pretending the business could turn around. I remembered watching her work, her patient focus, the little hum in her throat when she was happy. That sound haunted the empty room now. I spent 3 days cleaning, sweeping, organizing, trying to scrub away not just the grime, but the years themselves. Every rag turned black. The first night, my back screamed from bending and lifting, but I kept going until 2 a.m. The second night, I found a jar of bolts Linda had labeled miscellaneous, her handwriting faded but still neat. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. By the third night, the place started to look like something again, not new, but functional, alive. I set up my laptop on the old desk, the one with the cigarette burn in the corner from a customer who never paid his bill. Plugged in the surveillance equipment I'd bought 15 years ago when I was worried about break-ins, cameras, recorders. Nothing fancy, nothing illegal. Just tools, extensions of my hands, ways to see what people didn't want me to see. I started with Clara. She'd always been the bright one, or at least that's what Linda used to say. Cheerful, photogenic, a natural performer. Her influencer account was public. Everything was public. She posted 3 times a day, yoga poses, smoothie bowls, inspirational quotes over sunset backgrounds, all smiles and filtered skies, 30,000 followers, sponsorship deals with supplement companies and athleisure brands. She talked about authenticity and manifesting abundance. I watched every post, every story, every live stream. I took notes. The patterns emerged quickly. Her captions were recycled from other accounts, her photos carefully staged to look spontaneous. The camera never caught the edges of the frame, the clutter on the counter, the cheap lighting, the reality. But what caught me wasn't the vanity. It was the math. The money didn't add up. I'd been a mechanic for 35 years. I understood numbers, understood when things didn't balance. Clara was living in a house worth $800,000. She drove a BMW. She wore clothes that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Influencer money didn't cover that. Not with 30,000 followers. The big ones. The million-follower accounts, maybe. But not Clara. So where was the money coming from? I dug deeper. Old habits resurfaced. Late nights, the glow of the monitor on my face, the hum of the small space heater in the corner. I traced transactions, cross-referenced public records, followed breadcrumbs through LLC registrations and property records. That's when I found Ethan's real estate company, Prestige Properties. Website full of glossy photos and testimonials that looked like they'd been written by the same person. The site was slick, professional, maybe too professional for a man who barely passed accounting in college. When I checked the state business registry, the company was only 2 years old. The address listed was a P.O. box. I drove by his office. It was a WeWork space, shared office, rented by the hour. No dedicated suite, no secretary, no sign on the door. Ethan wasn't a real estate broker. He was playing one on the internet. I watched him for a week. His schedule was inconsistent. He left home late, came back early, always dressed like he was going to an open house, but I never saw him meet clients. Once, I followed him across town. He parked outside a coffee shop, sat there for 2 hours, scrolling on his phone. I recognized the nervous habits, tapping the steering wheel, checking the mirrors. He wasn't working. He was waiting for something that wasn't coming. I knew that look. I'd seen it in the mirror after the shop closed for the last time. Ryan was different. Loud, confident, full of buzzwords. His startup was called TechFlow Solutions. According to his LinkedIn, they were disrupting the cloud storage market with innovative blockchain integration. I didn't know what half those words meant, but I knew bullshit when I smelled it. I found the investor documents, public filings. Ryan had raised $2 million from a group of angel investors. The company had burned through $1.8 million in 18 months. They had 11 employees, no product, no revenue, no path to profitability, just a website and a pitch deck. In 6 months, the money would run out. When it did, he'd blame the economy or the market or the investors themselves. People like Ryan always had someone else to blame. And Leah, her Instagram was something else. Photos from Dubai, from Milan, from Cabo, all posted in the last year, all before she met Ryan. Perfectly lit, perfectly posed, the kind of lifestyle feed that screamed luxury. But something felt off, too polished, too uniform. I reverse image searched a few, found them on stock photo sites. She hadn't been to Dubai. She'd bought the photos. Everything was fake. Everything was a performance. She had no job listed, no identifiable source of income. Yet she wore jewelry worth thousands and stayed in hotels I couldn't afford even back when business was good. I started keeping a ledger. Every expense I could track, every fake photo, every inconsistency. Clara's yoga studio partnership was a one-day rental for content creation. Ethan's listings were copied from Zillow. Ryan's office furniture was rented for investor meetings. Leah's vacations were Photoshop and lighting filters. And yet they all acted like they were untouchable, like the world owed them a spotlight. That's when I realized why they were circling me, why Clara was squatting in my rental house, why Leah wanted my apartment downtown. They were drowning, and they thought I was their life raft. I'd worked for everything I had, 3 properties, modest savings, a pension that barely covered the bills. They looked at me and saw opportunity. They saw someone old and predictable, someone they could charm, manipulate, divide, and conquer. I should have felt angry, betrayed, hurt, but I didn't. What I felt was cold, calculating, like something mechanical had clicked into place in my brain. Linda used to tell me I saw everything like an engine, a problem that could be diagnosed, parts that could be replaced, systems that could be fixed. She wasn't wrong. I'd spent my life solving other people's problems, replacing their worn-out parts, making their machines run smooth again. My children weren't broken engines. They were cancerous parts, and the only fix was removal. I started to plan, not impulsively, not out of rage, but methodically. Every job starts with an inspection. I reviewed what I had, surveillance feeds from the cameras I'd set up around the workshop and the properties. I watched who came and went, what time, how long they stayed. Clara showed up twice during the week, both times to pick up packages she'd had shipped there under my name. Ethan didn't come by, but I saw his car once parked near the corner, idling. Ryan called twice, left no message. Leah sent a text pretending to check on me, ending with a heart emoji. Every move was part of the same game. I logged it all. Then I dug into their communications. Public posts, emails recovered from old accounts, messages in comment sections. Patterns emerged. Ethan and Ryan were talking more than they admitted. Clara was tagging a luxury skincare brand that didn't exist. Leah was linking to travel partners that redirected to spam sites. It wasn't coincidence. It was coordination. They were building an illusion together, a shared front to keep the lies afloat. I remembered something Linda said the night before she died. You can't save people who don't think they're drowning. I didn't understand it then. I do now. They weren't trying to save themselves. They were trying to drag everyone else down with them. By the second week, the workshop was spotless. Every tool gleamed. The cameras were live. The monitors glowed in the dim light. Feeds from the rental house, from the garage, from the street outside. I sat in the old rolling chair, the same one I'd used back when customers used to sit across from me to argue about labor costs. The same chair where Linda once sat, laughing, legs swinging as she read me the newspaper headlines. I stared at the screens until my eyes burned. I watched Clara posing in front of the rental house, pretending it was hers. I watched Ethan showing a client a property that wasn't for sale. I watched Ryan pacing in a co-working space, talking loudly about investors who'd stopped returning his calls. And Leah was sitting in a cafe, editing her latest travel vlog, sipping a coffee she couldn't afford. Each of them living in a version of reality they'd built out of air, each of them blind to the collapse already coming. I used to think engines had personalities. You could tell when one was mistreated, the way it coughed, the way it stalled. There was always a warning before failure. My kids had given me their warnings long ago. I just hadn't wanted to hear them. Now I heard them loud and clear. The plan wasn't about violence. Not yet. It was about exposure. Systems fail when you strip away their lubrication, when you show every friction point, every weakness. I was going to make them show themselves, make their lies grind against each other until the whole machine seized up. I cataloged everything, built a dossier for each of them. Dates, transactions, screenshots, photos. I printed them out, labeled them with precision. Then I waited, watched, listened. Every system, no matter how complex, breaks down eventually. All it needs is time and a mechanic who knows where to look. I started small. Ethan's company website had a contact form. I used it, set up a fake email, posed as someone who'd hired Prestige Properties to sell their house, said they'd taken the listing down without permission, said they'd pocketed the earnest money, said I was considering legal action. I didn't send it to Ethan. I sent it to the State Real Estate Commission. 3 days later, Ethan's website went dark. Clara posted on Instagram about difficult times and staying strong. The comments were sympathetic. Poor Clara, such a fighter. I waited a week. Then I created another fake account. This one was a former client of Prestige Properties. They'd bought a house through Ethan. The inspection had been falsified. There was mold in the walls, structural damage. They were suing. I posted it on a real estate forum. Let it spread. 2 more of Ethan's listings disappeared from the MLS. Clara's posts got more desperate, more positive thinking and manifesting abundance. Her follower count started dropping. Not much, 100 here, 200 there. But it was dropping. I moved on to Ryan. His startup's investor update emails were sent through a mailing list. I found the list, found the investors, started sending anonymous tips. Did you know TechFlow has no product roadmap? Did you know the CEO's previous company filed for bankruptcy? Did you know they're burning through cash with no revenue model? One by one, the investors started asking questions. Ryan had to schedule emergency calls, emergency meetings. His LinkedIn posts went from confident to defensive. We're pivoting our strategy. We're focusing on core competencies. We're streamlining operations. Startup language for we're screwed. Leah's Instagram went quiet. No more stock photos. No more fake luxury. Just silence. I sat in my workshop every night, alone. Linda's old coffee mug on the desk next to my laptop, her reading glasses folded on top of a stack of papers. You'd tell me I was being vindictive, I said to the empty room. You'd tell me to be the bigger person. But Linda wasn't there, and I wasn't interested in being the bigger person anymore. My phone rang. Clara. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, we need to talk. Things are really hard right now. Ethan's business is having some problems. If you could help us out. Just a loan. Just until things turn around. Delete. Ryan called next. Dad, I know we haven't been great lately, but family is family. I need to borrow some money. Just $20,000. I'll pay you back in 6 months. Delete. Leah sent a text. Michael, I'm sorry for how I acted at the wedding. I was stressed. Please, we need help. Delete. I kept working. Found out Clara's biggest sponsor was a supplement company under investigation by the FDA. Sent the information to a consumer watchdog blog. They published it. Clara's sponsorship was dropped within 24 hours. Found out Ethan had never actually passed the real estate licensing exam. He'd been operating on a temporary license that had expired. Sent the information to his brokerage. He was terminated. Found out Ryan had been lying to his investors about the company's progress. Sent the proof to the investor group's lawyer. They threatened to sue. Everything I did was legal. Everything I did was true. I wasn't fabricating evidence. I wasn't creating lies. I was just finding the truth and putting it in the right hands. 3 months after the wedding, Clara and Ethan moved out of my rental house. Didn't tell me. Just left. I drove by one day and saw the place was empty. Furniture gone. No note. No apology. No returned keys. I had the locks changed. Listed it for rent. Had it occupied in a week. Ryan's startup collapsed. He laid off all 11 employees. The office closed. His LinkedIn went dark. Leah left him, moved back in with her parents in California. Her Instagram account disappeared, and I kept working. 6 months after the wedding, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. These days, most of the calls I got were junk. Scams, telemarketers, people asking for donations or trying to sell me extended warranties on cars I didn't even own anymore. But something about the timing made me pause. Late afternoon, a gray sky pressing down over the workshop, the smell of oil and dust thick in the air. I picked up. "Mr. Henderson?" The voice was soft, tentative. "Who is this?" "My name is Patricia Turner. I'm Ethan's mother." I almost hung up. Almost. My thumb hovered over the red button. I hadn't heard that name in years, and the sound of it was like a spark in a pile of oily rags. Dangerous, familiar. But something in her voice made me wait. There was a tremor in it, a kind of exhaustion that couldn't be faked. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want to meet with you," she said. "To talk, to apologize." Apologize. The word came out flat, more a statement than a question. "Yes," she said quietly. "For what happened at your property, for everything. Could we meet for coffee?" I should have said no. Should have hung up. But curiosity is a powerful thing, especially when it mixes with old anger. There was a time when Patricia used to bring Ethan by the shop, back when he was a scrawny kid with scraped knees and too much energy. Back when life still made sense. I hadn't thought about those days in a long time, but her voice cracked something open in me. Against my better judgment, I said yes. We met at a diner off Highway 26, the kind of place that never changed, the same flickering neon sign, the same smell of burnt coffee and fried onions, the same laminated menus that stuck to your fingers. Patricia was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with her hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her together. She looked older than I remembered. The years hadn't been kind to her. Deep lines carved across her face, gray streaks running through her hair. Tired eyes. But there was still something familiar in the way she straightened when she saw me, the faint smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said. I didn't respond. I just slid into the booth across from her. The vinyl seat squeaked under me. I didn't order anything. She stirred her coffee even though she hadn't added sugar. The spoon clinked against the cup. "I need you to know something," she said finally. "What they did to you was wrong. I told Clara that. I told Ethan. They didn't listen." My jaw tightened. I stared at her, waiting. "Why are you telling me this?" She looked down at her hands. "Because they're planning something else." She took a breath, then looked up at me. "They're planning to contest your wife's will, to claim you were mentally unfit when she left you the properties, to take everything." The words didn't register right away. They sat in the air between us, heavy and absurd, until the meaning sank in. I felt that cold thing in my chest again, the same one that had settled there the night I realized what my children were really after. "On what grounds?" I asked, though I already knew. "The confusion. she said softly. The forgetting. They've been documenting it. Every time you supposedly agreed to something you later denied. Every conversation you supposedly had that you don't remember. They're building a case that you have dementia. I let out a slow breath. I don't have dementia. I know, she said quickly. I know you don't. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder thick with papers. That's why I wanted to meet you. I printed their emails, their text messages, everything. I thought you should know what you're dealing with. She pushed the folder across the table. It slid toward me, bumping against my hand. I opened it, flipped through the first few pages. My name in black and white. Subject lines, forwarded messages, snippets of conversations that made my stomach twist. Why are you doing this? I asked quietly. Patricia was silent for a long time. The clatter of dishes and the murmur of other diners filled the space between us. Finally, she said, Because I raised Ethan better than this. Her voice broke a little. Because when his father died, you helped us. You fixed our car for free when we couldn't afford the repairs. You drove Ethan to baseball practice when I had to work. You were kind when we had nothing. I stared at her. I didn't remember that. Maybe I should have. But memory is strange. It keeps what hurts and loses what matters. They're going to file next month, she said. I wanted you to be prepared. I closed the folder. Thank you. She nodded, eyes wet but steady. Then she stood, smoothing her coat. Before she left, she hesitated. Michael, she said softly, whatever you're doing to them, whatever you've been doing, I don't know and I don't want to know, but they deserve it. Then she was gone. I sat in that diner booth for an hour. The waitress came by twice to ask if I wanted anything. I just shook my head. The coffee smell made me sick. I opened the folder again, page by page, reading every word, every message. There were screenshots of texts between Clara and Ethan, email threads including Ryan and Leah, plans, timelines, notes about how to handle me, how to manage his confusion. They'd been building their story for months. Clara had written, "He's old. He'll believe anything we tell him." Ryan had written, "We just need to push harder. He'll break." Ethan had written, "Once we get control of his properties, we can sell them and split the money. He'll be in assisted living. He won't even know." Every line was a blade. I could hear their voices saying the words. I could see their faces, calm and confident, as they planned to erase me from my own life. The same people who used to sit at my table, who'd eaten Linda's cooking, who'd called me Dad. I turned another page. There were photographs, too. Me, standing in my driveway, unlocking the workshop, talking to a neighbor, taken from a distance. I realized they'd been watching me, documenting me. Every small hesitation, every pause, every slip of memory. Evidence, they'd call it. Proof. By the time I reached the last page, my hands were shaking. I closed the folder slowly, slid it back toward me, and stared at the Formica tabletop. The noise of the diner faded to a low hum. All I could hear was the steady rhythm of my own breathing. When I finally stood, the waitress tried to smile at me. I nodded, left a tip I hadn't earned, and walked out into the gray afternoon. The sky looked like old steel. I drove back to the workshop in silence. I passed the turnoff for the rental house, for Ethan's subdivision, for the coffee shop where Ryan liked to hold his pretend business meetings. For a moment, I considered stopping. I could have confronted them right then, could have walked in and ended it face to face. But that wasn't how mechanics worked. You didn't fix an engine by hitting it with a wrench. You took it apart carefully, piece by piece, until you found what was broken. When I reached the workshop, I parked outside and just sat there for a while. The cold seeped through the windshield. The folder lay on the passenger seat, heavy as a confession. I picked it up, carried it inside, and set it on the bench beside my laptop. Then I pulled out my phone. "Jack," I said when he answered. There was a pause, the faint background noise of a television somewhere on his end. "Mike, been a while. I need your help again." He didn't ask what kind of help at first. He never did. Jack was one of those men who understood what silence meant. But after a moment, he said, "What kind of help?" "The permanent kind." He didn't speak for several seconds. I could almost hear him weighing the words. "You sure?" he said finally. "Yeah." "Same terms as before?" "Yes." "All right," he said. "Send me what you've got. I'll make some calls." I hung up without saying goodbye. I stood there in the workshop, surrounded by the smell of oil and dust, the hum of the old fluorescent lights. My reflection stared back at me from the darkened window, older, harder, less human somehow. Patricia's words echoed in my head. They deserve it. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was past caring whether she was. I opened the folder again, this time with a mechanic's precision. I spread the pages out across the bench, arranging them by name, by date, by category. Clara's deceit, Ethan's arrogance, Ryan's greed, Leah's vanity. Every one of them a different component of the same broken system. I studied their words, their lies, their confidence. They thought they were playing me. They didn't realize I'd been watching, recording, documenting long before they ever started. The cameras I'd set up weren't just for break-ins anymore. I had footage of every visit, every conversation, every argument. The microphones hidden in the rental house had picked up more than they knew, enough to ruin them legally, financially, socially. But that wasn't enough anymore. You can't fix a machine by patching leaks. You have to remove the defective parts. Outside, the wind picked up, whistling through the cracks in the old siding. I turned off the lights and sat in the dark, listening to it. Patricia had done her part. Now it was my turn. They wanted to prove I was losing my mind. They were about to find out just how sharp it still was. Jack showed up at the workshop 3 days later. He looked the same as he had at the wedding. Gray hair, military bearing, that look in his eyes that said he'd seen things most people only have nightmares about. We'd served together in the first Gulf War. 34 years ago, we'd kept in touch, not close. But enough that when I'd called him 6 months ago and said I needed someone to scare my family, he'd driven 3 hours to help. "You sounded serious on the phone," he said. I handed him the folder Patricia had given me. He read through it. His expression didn't change. "This is bad, Mike. I know. What do you want to do?" "I want to end this." "End it how?" I told him my plan. All of it. Everything I'd been doing for the last 6 months. Everything I was going to do next. He was quiet for a long time. "You're playing with fire. I'm aware. If you go too far, you'll end up like them." I smiled. "That's the plan." "Mike." "What? You sure about this? Once you start, there's no walking it back." "I'm sure." He nodded slowly. "Okay. What do you need me to do?" "I need you to be the bad guy one more time." "I can do that." We spent the next week planning. Jack brought in some equipment, listening devices, cameras, nothing illegal, nothing that required a warrant, just tools to document the truth. We installed them in my rental house, the one Clara and Ethan had squatted in. I'd gotten it back, but I had a feeling they weren't done with it. I wanted to be ready. I was right. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a lawyer. "Mr. Henderson, my name is Barry Simmons. I represent Clara Henderson and Ryan Henderson. They've asked me to contact you regarding some concerns about your mental fitness." "Mental fitness?" "Yes, sir. They're worried about you. They believe you may be suffering from early-stage dementia. They'd like to help you get the care you need. By taking my properties. By ensuring your assets are properly managed during this difficult time." "I'm not suffering from dementia." "With all respect, Mr. Henderson, that's exactly what someone with dementia would say. Your children have documented numerous instances of confusion. forgotten conversations, erratic behavior. They're concerned. Tell my children to go to hell. I hung up. Jack was sitting across from me. That went well. They're moving faster than I thought. What's next? The dinner. I invited them all to dinner. Clara, Ryan, Ethan. Leah had stayed in California, but the rest of them showed up. I told them I wanted to make peace, to apologize, to discuss the future. They thought they'd won. I rented a private dining room at a steakhouse downtown, neutral territory, public enough that they couldn't cause a scene, private enough for honesty. They arrived together. Clara wearing designer clothes she couldn't afford, Ryan in a suit that probably cost more than my car, Ethan looking nervous like he knew something was wrong but couldn't figure out what. Dad, Clara said, kissing my cheek, this is wonderful. I'm so glad you're being reasonable. Reasonable, I said. We sat down, ordered drinks, made small talk, all very civilized, all very fake. Then I put the folder on the table. What's that? Ryan asked. Your emails, your texts, your plans to declare me incompetent and steal my properties. Clara's face went white. Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I opened the folder, started reading aloud, every email, every text, every conversation about how to manipulate me, how to gaslight me, how to steal from me. Ethan stood up. Where did you get those? Doesn't matter. This is illegal. This is stolen property. No, it's evidence. Evidence that you've been planning to commit fraud. Ryan leaned forward. Dad, you're confused. You're taking things out of context. Am I? I pulled out another folder. This is documentation of every lie you've told your investors, every promise you couldn't keep, every expense you hid. Your company is bankrupt, Ryan. You've been paying yourself a salary with money you told investors was going to product development. That's not true. It is true. And this, I pulled out a third folder, is documentation of Ethan's real estate fraud, the falsified licenses, the stolen earnest money, the fake listings, all of it. Clara started crying. You're doing this to hurt us. No. You did this to yourselves. I just helped it along. What do you mean? Ryan's voice was tight. The business commission complaints, the investor tips, the forum posts, all of it. Me. Silence. You sabotaged us? Clara's voice was shaking. I exposed you. There's a difference. Ethan lunged across the table. Jack stepped out from the corner where he'd been standing, blocked him, pushed him back into his chair. Who the hell is that? Ryan asked. An old friend. This is insane, Clara said. You're insane. Am I? Let's talk about insane. Let's talk about stealing your father's property. Let's talk about forging conversations. Let's talk about trying to have me declared incompetent so you can steal my money. We weren't stealing, Ryan said. We were helping. Helping yourselves. You're old. You're alone. You don't need all these properties. And you do? Yes. Clara stood up. Yes, we do. We have lives. We have futures. You're just sitting on assets you don't even use. It's selfish. There was that word again. Selfish. Your mother warned me about you, I said quietly. 3 years ago, in the hospital. She said you'd take everything and want more. I didn't believe her. I should have. Don't you dare bring Mom into this, Ryan said. Why not? She knew. She knew what you were. She knew what you'd become. Clara slapped me, just like Leah had at the wedding, right across the face. I didn't move, just looked at her. Feel better? I asked. She started crying harder. You're supposed to help us. You're our father. I was your father. Now I'm just a source of income. I stood up. Jack moved with me. Where are you going? Ryan asked. Home. We're not done talking about this. Yes, we are. I walked out, left them sitting at that table, crying, arguing, imploding. Jack walked with me to the parking lot. That was brutal, he said. It needed to be. What now? Now we wait for them to make their move. And if they don't, they will. I was right. 3 days later, the police showed up at my apartment. Mr. Henderson? Yes? We need to talk to you about some allegations made by your children. They said I'd threatened them, that I'd shown violent tendencies, that they were concerned for their safety. I showed them the folders, the emails, the texts, the evidence of their fraud. The officers looked uncomfortable. Sir, this is a family matter. It's a legal matter. Your children are concerned about your mental health. They've suggested you see a doctor. I'm fine. They said you'd say that. I called my lawyer, an old friend from the neighborhood who handled my will after Linda died. He told the police the same thing I did. This was harassment. This was retaliation. This was my children trying to steal my property. The police left. But I knew it wasn't over. That night, someone tried to break into my apartment, set off the alarm. They ran before I could see who it was, but I knew. I called Jack. They're escalating, I said. What do you want to do? I want to finish this. We spent 2 days preparing, setting up the final stage, the last move. I called Clara, told her I wanted to settle this, told her to bring Ryan and Ethan to my apartment, told her we'd work something out. She agreed immediately. Immediately. They showed up at 8 p.m., all 3 of them. Clara looked determined. Ryan looked angry. Ethan looked scared. Dad, Clara said, we want to help you. Help me how? We think you should see a doctor, get evaluated. If there's nothing wrong, great, but if there is, we can get you the care you need. And if I refuse? Then we'll have to take legal action, for your own safety. I see. I opened the door wider. Come in, let's talk. They came in, sat down in my living room, on my furniture, in my space, and that's when Jack came out of the bedroom, with the video camera. What is this? Ryan stood up. This is documentation, I said, of you trying to coerce me into giving up my rights, of you threatening legal action to steal my property, of everything. You're recording us? Clara looked horrified. Yes, that's illegal. No, this is my home. I can record whatever I want in my home. Ethan moved toward Jack. Jack didn't move, just held the camera steady. You should leave, I said. Not until we settle this, Ryan said. There's nothing to settle. You want my properties. I'm not giving them to you. End of discussion. You're making a mistake, Clara said. No, you made the mistake. You thought I was weak. You thought I was old and confused and easy to manipulate. You were wrong. Ryan grabbed my arm. Listen, old man. Jack set down the camera, moved between us. Don't, Jack said quietly. Ryan let go, stepped back. Get out, I said. They left. Didn't say anything. Just left. Jack picked up the camera. Well, that was something. It's not over. I know. But it was close. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Barry Simmons, their lawyer. Mr. Henderson, we need to inform you that your children are withdrawing their petition for conservatorship. Why? They've decided it's not in anyone's best interest to pursue legal action at this time. What changed their minds? I'm not at liberty to say. But I knew. The recordings, the evidence, the fact that everything I'd done was legal and everything they'd done wasn't. I hung up, sat in my apartment, looked at Linda's photo. It's done, I told her. But it wasn't. Not quite. 3 days later, Clara showed up at my door. Alone. No Ethan, no Ryan. Just her. Can we talk? She asked. I let her in. She sat on the couch. Didn't say anything for a long time. I'm sorry, she finally said. For what? For everything. For moving into your house, for trying to take your apartment, for the lawyer, for all of it. Why? Why what? Why did you do it? She was quiet. Because I was scared. Because Ethan's business was failing. Because we were about to lose everything. Because I thought you had money you didn't need. I'm your father, not your bank. I know. She wiped her eyes. I know that now. What do you want from me, Clara? I want to know if there's any way we can fix this. I thought about that. Thought about Linda's warning, thought about the last 6 months, thought about everything they'd tried to do to me. No, I said. Dad. You made your choice. You chose money over family. You chose manipulation over honesty. You chose to treat me like an obstacle instead of a person. I was wrong. Yes, you were. So that's it? You're just going to cut us out of your life? You cut yourselves out. I'm just accepting it. She stood up. You're really going to do this? Yes. She left, slammed the door behind her. I sat there for a long time, felt tired, felt old, felt done, but not quite. 1 month later, I sold the rental house. The one on Maple Street. The one Clara and Ethan had squatted in. Got a good price for it. Put the money in an account they couldn't touch. I kept my apartment, kept my workshop, kept my life small and simple and mine. Ryan's startup officially dissolved. He got a job at a tech company, entry level, making a fraction of what he used to claim his startup was worth. Clara and Ethan moved to Arizona, smaller house, quieter life. She stopped posting on Instagram. He got a job at a car dealership. I didn't hear from them. Didn't expect to. Jack called me on a Tuesday. How you doing, Mike? I'm okay. Really? Really? No regrets? I thought about that. Some, but not many. Good. You did the right thing. Did I? They were going to destroy you. You stopped them. That's all. It doesn't feel like all. It never does. We talked for a while, about nothing important, about the weather, about baseball, about getting old. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, looked at Linda's photo, at her smile, at the life we'd built together. Was I too hard on them? I asked her. She didn't answer. She never did. But I knew what she'd say. You did what you had to do. That was the thing about family. They could love you and hurt you in the same breath. They could need you and resent you at the same time. They could be your greatest joy and your deepest wound. I'd protected myself, protected what Linda and I had built, protected my dignity. But I'd lost my children in the process. Was it worth it? I didn't know. Maybe I'd never know. 3 months passed. Quiet months, peaceful months. I worked in my workshop, fixed a few cars for neighbors, read books, took walks, lived small. Then one day, I got a letter. No return address. Postmarked from Arizona. Inside was a single photograph. Clara, younger, maybe 7 years old, sitting on Linda's lap, both of them laughing. On the back, in Clara's handwriting, I found this in a box of Mom's things. Thought you might want it. That was all. No note, no apology, no explanation. Just the photo. I put it in a frame, set it on the shelf next to Linda's photo. Maybe someday Clara would call. Maybe someday Ryan would reach out. Maybe someday we'd find a way back to something that looked like family. Maybe, but maybe not. And I'd learned to be okay with that. 6 months after the dinner, I was in my workshop when someone knocked on the door. I almost didn't answer. The workshop was my space, private, safe, but something made me open it. Ryan stood there. He looked different, older, tired. His expensive suit was gone. He wore jeans and a t-shirt. His car was a used Honda, not the Tesla he'd driven at the wedding. What do you want? I asked. To talk. About what? About everything. He shifted his weight. Can I come in? I should have said no, should have closed the door. But I stepped aside. He walked in, looked around, saw Linda's old coffee mug on the workbench, smiled sadly. I remember this place, he said. You used to bring me here when I was a kid, teach me about engines. You never paid attention. I know, I should have. We stood there in silence. He looked at the floor. I looked at him. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what? specifically? For treating you like an ATM, for listening to Leah, for forgetting that you're my father and not just someone with money. That's a lot to be sorry for. I know. What changed? He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. A baby, small, red, sleeping. Her name is Linda, he said. After Mom. She's 2 months old. I looked at the photo, felt something shift in my chest. Leah came back? I asked. No, this is someone else. Melissa. She's good. She's real. She doesn't care about money or status. She just wants a normal life. And you? I want to be the father you tried to be, before I screwed it all up. I handed the phone back. That's going to be hard. I know. You can't undo what you did. I know that too. Then why are you here? Because I want my daughter to know her grandfather. And because I want to know if there's any chance you can forgive me. I looked at him. At my son. At the man who'd tried to steal from me. Who'd called me confused. Who'd supported his wife when she'd slapped me. I don't know, I said honestly. That's fair. It'll take time. I have time. We stood there for a while longer. Didn't say much. Didn't need to. Before he left, he stopped at the door. For what it's worth, you were right. About everything. We were selfish. We were cruel. You deserved better. Yes, I said. I did. He nodded. Left. I stood in the workshop. Alone, the way I'd been for months, but maybe not forever. Clara never apologized. Not directly. But she sent photos occasionally. Her and Ethan's new house in Arizona. Small, modest. A vegetable garden in the back. A rescued dog in the yard. She'd gotten a job. Real job. Teaching yoga at a community center. No more Instagram. No more influencer dreams. Just work. Just life. I didn't respond to the photos. But I didn't delete them either. Maybe that was enough. Patricia called me once. Said Ethan was working on getting his real estate license. The right way this time. Said he talked about me sometimes. About the help I'd given them years ago. About wanting to make amends. I told her I appreciated the call. Didn't say anything else. She understood. Jack visited the workshop one last time. Brought beer. We sat on old metal stools. Drank in silence. You did good, Mike, he said. I don't know about that. You stood up for yourself. That's more than most people do. I destroyed my family. No. They tried to destroy you. You just didn't let them. Feels the same. It's not. We finished the beers. He left. We didn't make plans to meet again. We both knew we wouldn't. Some friendships are for specific moments. Specific battles. Once they're over, so is the friendship. I was okay with that too. 1 year after the wedding, I closed the workshop. The lease was up. I didn't renew it. Didn't need to. The revenge was done. The battle was over. I sold most of the tools. Kept Linda's coffee mug. Kept the socket wrenches she'd organized. Kept the photos. My apartment felt larger without the weight of anger in it. Lighter. Cleaner. I started volunteering at a community center. Teaching basic car maintenance. Oil changes. Tire rotations. Simple things. The people there didn't know my story, didn't know about my children, didn't know about the last year of my life. They just knew me as Mike, the guy who was good with engines, the guy who told jokes while showing them how to check their brake fluid. It was enough. Ryan brought Linda to meet me 3 months later. The baby, his daughter, my granddaughter. We met at a park, neutral territory. Melissa was there too. She was exactly what Ryan had said, normal. Kind, real. I held the baby. She was so small, so light, so completely unaware of everything that had happened. She has Mom's eyes, Ryan said quietly. He was right. She did. What do you want from me? I asked him. Nothing. I just wanted you to meet her, and if you want to be in her life, I'd like that. But if you don't, I understand. I looked at the baby, at Linda's eyes. At the future. I'll think about it, I said. He nodded, took the baby back, didn't push, didn't plead, just accepted it. They left. I sat on the park bench, watched them walk away, watched them disappear into the crowd. Maybe I'd call Ryan next week. Maybe I'd ask to see the baby again. Maybe. 2 years after the wedding, I ran into Clara at the grocery store. We both stopped, both stared. Neither knew what to say. "Hi, Dad," she finally said. "Clara, how are you?" "I'm fine." "Good. That's good." We stood there, awkward, painful. "I heard about Ryan's baby," she said. "Yeah. Have you met her?" "A few times." "That's nice." Silence again. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know I've said it before, but I mean it. I know. Will you ever forgive me?" I thought about that. Really thought about it. "I don't know," I said honestly. She nodded, blinked back tears. "I understand." She walked away. I let her. Forgiveness wasn't a switch you could flip. It was a process. Slow, painful, uncertain. Maybe I'd get there someday. Maybe I wouldn't. But I wasn't going to force it. I'm 60 now. 2 years older than when this started. 2 years wiser. 2 years more alone. But I'm okay with alone. I've learned that alone doesn't mean lonely. It just means peace. Linda's photos are still on the wall. Her coffee mug is still in the cabinet. Her memory is still with me every day. Ryan brings little Linda by once a month. We don't talk about what happened. We just talk about the baby, about life, about nothing important. It's enough. Clara sends a Christmas card every year. Photos of her and Ethan, their dog, their garden, their quiet life. I don't send one back, but I don't throw hers away either. Maybe that's progress. The workshop is gone. The surveillance equipment is gone. The folders of evidence are locked in a storage unit I'll probably never open again. That part of my life is over. But it shaped everything that came after. The boundaries I set. The lines I drew. The person I became. I'm not the same man who turned his key and found his daughter in his house. I'm harder now, more guarded, less willing to be hurt. But I'm also freer, clearer, more certain of who I am and what I deserve. Linda would be proud, I think. She'd tell me I waited too long, that I should have stood up for myself years ago. But she'd also tell me I did good, that I protected what we built, that I survived. And I did. I survived. They didn't break me. They tried. God knows they tried. But in the end, I was still standing. And they were the ones who had to rebuild. I think about the man from the wedding sometimes, Jack. The actor I paid to scare my family. No, not an actor. That was the final twist. The final revelation I never told them. Jack wasn't an actor. He was real. He was my friend. He was exactly who I said he was. But I let them think he was fake. Let them think I'd engineered the whole thing. Let them think I was some mastermind manipulator, because that's what they needed to believe. That's what made them back down. Sometimes the best revenge isn't the truth. It's the fear of what the truth might be. 3 years now. Linda's birthday. I put flowers on her grave. Sit on the bench nearby. I did it, I tell her. Just like you warned me to, I protected us. A breeze moves through the trees. Could be her. Could be nothing. I choose to believe it's her. Ryan's at home with his family. Clara's in Arizona. My apartment is quiet. My life is small. But it's mine. I stand up. Brush off my pants. Look at Linda's headstone one more time. See you next week, I say. I walk to my car, drive home, park in my spot, walk up to my apartment, turn my key in the lock. The door opens. No one inside but me. I smile. That's exactly right. I walk in. Close the door. Lock it behind me. The keys are mine. The life is mine. The peace is mine. They wanted to take it, wanted to steal it, wanted to break me down until I had nothing left. But I'm still here. Still standing. Still me. I pull out my phone. Look at the last photo Ryan sent. Little Linda, 3 years old now, laughing. Maybe I'll call tomorrow. Maybe I'll ask to visit. Maybe. Or maybe I'll just sit here in my apartment, in my peace, in my hard-won solitude. Either way, I'm good. I put the phone down, make coffee in Linda's old mug, sit at the window, watch the sunset. And I realized something. I won. Not because I destroyed them. Not because I got revenge. Not because I manipulated them into imploding. I won because I survived. Because I kept what was mine. Because I refused to be the weak, confused old man they wanted me to be. I won because I'm still here. And that's enough. The sun sets. The sky turns orange, then purple, then black. I finish my coffee, wash the mug, put it back in the cabinet. Tomorrow I'll wake up, make coffee, go about my day, live my life. Small, quiet, mine. And if my children want back in, they know where to find me. But they'll find me on my terms now, not theirs. They'll find me strong, unbending, unbroken. They'll find me exactly where they left me, standing at my door, key in hand, refusing to be moved. That's my revenge, not their destruction, my survival. And it's the sweetest revenge of all. I turn off the lights, go to bed, close my eyes. And for the first time in 3 years, I sleep without anger. Just peace. Just me. Just the quiet victory of a man who refused to break.